today's video we're going to take a look at an Imperial Good Companion Model 6 typewriter made in 1961. At the moment it doesn't actually work. The carriage doesn't move. That's probably down to either a tangled or broken carriage draw cord, or possibly the drawspring itself is broken. We'll take a look at that in a bit. Also, several of the keys stick like that, so they'll need freeing up. Some of the letters are clogged, so they'll need cleaning up as well. This little knob on the right falls off when it shouldn't do, so that'll need fixing. And generally the machine needs a good clean. The typewriter came with a case, which is also in need of a good clean, and on top of that the zip has come unstitched here, so that'll need restitching. Okay, I've got the typewriter flipped upside down on something soft. I'm actually using some bubble wrap because that was easy to hand. And you can see the carriage draw cord is down here, and it should be passing round this pulley here, and it's not. It's come off that pulley and it's got tangled under the drum. The drum has the spring in it. So I'll get the carriage draw cord back into position and see where we go from there. Okay, I've got the draw cord back in position round the pulley and wrapped round the spring drum. That was pretty easy. All I had to do was move the carriage across that way to create some slack in the cord, and then I was able to just pull it out from under the drum and get it back in position. But it looks like the reason it came off, the oil or grease in the spring drum has gone really thick, and if I press the space bar, the carriage moves, but the spring is really slow to catch up and pull some tension back onto the cord. So I think someone just moved the carriage across and the cord fell off. So I think we'll have a look at the spring next. The correct way to deal with the gungy spring would probably be to take it all apart and get the spring in paraffin to clean the old oil off. But I should be able to soften it up by applying a little bit of methylated spirits just gently into the spring to soften the old oil and grease, and then once it's freed up just add a little bit of new oil and that should get it moving properly. So we'll give that a try. So I'm just going to bring in a drop or two of methylated spirits on the end of a screwdriver. I don't want gallons in there, I just want a little bit to soften the old oil up. And once I've got a bit in there, I'll work that spring a little bit. This may take some time, so I'll probably cut some bits out of this footage. And I'll just keep adding a little bit of methylated spirits and working the spring until it frees up enough, and then I'll just re-oil it. And I think that should do the trick. I could use any other solvent for this. IPA would be fine. Okay, I'm just going to pop on a little bit of a light oil, because you shouldn't usually have grease on springs, just a bit of light oil to reduce the friction as they unwind. So, quick progress update. I've worked the oil into the spring and now it's all working fine. The carriage is free to move the entire length and the cord doesn't fall off and the spring's working perfectly. So that part is now finished. Okay, another quick update. Having tried the carriage a few times, the spring's actually lacking in tension, and I did notice there was a twist in the cord when I first refitted it, so I think it had actually dropped a loop off the top. So I can do something about that. If I pull some more cord out of the spring, then hold the spring barrel in place, I can pop a loop that's fallen off the top back on, like this, and then I'll just have to reposition the cord over the pulley here and drop the tension back in, and bada bing, we've now got another loop of tension on. I just need to make sure the cord is neatly wrapped around the drum. Oops, not underneath like that. So that is, yeah, the loops aren't overlapping themselves. That should be good. We'll flip it back over and check that and see if we just got a little bit more tension on, because I think it had dropped a loop off the top. Okay, let's see now. Yeah, that's much better. When the carriage was at the far end of the spring, there just wasn't enough tension left. It was really lacking in tension. That's definitely an improvement. The centre of some of the letters are clogged with paper dust and old ink, so I'll carefully pick the gunge out with a pin, and then once I've done that I'll give them a little clean with methylated spirits. Okay, that's the large bits of debris picked out from the middles of the letters. If you are using a pin for that job, just be careful how you do it. You don't want to actually scratch the typeface, so you just want to pick the dirt out from in the hole. So the next thing to do is apply a bit of methylated spirits or another similar product, and then the correct tool for the job for actually giving them a scrub is my toothbrush. Not sure what my dentist's going to think about this though. So I'll continue round and scrub all the letters so they're all cleaned up. There will have been some dirt fall into the mechanism from cleaning the actual letters, so I'm going to blow that out now. I don't want to drag in the big electric compressor because it's noisy, so for this job I'm going to use the acoustic. And that should do the trick. I'll do a bit of work on the underside now. I'll try and get rid of as much of the dust and dirt as I can before I actually start oiling the machine. And again, I might use my trusty acoustic compressor once I've finished. Right, and now for the acoustic compressor. Okay, a little bit more dusting down. And then I should be more or less ready to start oiling the machine. Excellent. Now for the oiling. Okay, most of the stickiness on the keys of the typewriter seems to be friction in these slots here that the keys pass through, and there's just old dried oil and dirt in there, so I'm cleaning them out with a bit of cloth wrapped around a bit of card so it'll go down the slot with a bit of methylated spirits on it, and that is doing the job quite well. I've already re-oiled the pivots on the keys, so things are starting to move quite nicely now. And you can see there's a fair bit of dirt building up on the cloth already. Okay, that's the last of the keyway guide slots cleaned out. The other thing that's causing a bit of sticking, when the key gets up to the top here, it passes through a little guide here. And there's dirt on the keys at that point, that's making them sticky, so I'm just going through them all. And again, cleaning that bit off with a bit of methylated spirits on a cotton bud. And that's the last of those cleaned up. The next thing to look at is this paper guide. The paper is inserted and it passes through the roller and out at the top, like that. But this paper guide is loose and clattery at the moment. There should be a retaining spring, so I'll see if I can sort that out in a minute. Rather handily, I have an earlier model of this typewriter to compare to. And there's a little hole here which is on that plate we were just looking at, which should have a spring attached to it. And rolling around in the bottom of the case, there was the correct spring. So I've just got to reinsert that, and that'll hopefully sort out the rattly paper guide plate. Okay, that's the spring reinstalled. It was a little bit fiddly, but it's back in place now. On closer inspection, it turned out that the guide plate had been bent at some time in the past. I've straightened that out, and now it's got the correct amount of movement, and also it's not catching on the mechanism as it was before, so I think that's job done. Mechanically, I think that's everything sorted on the typewriter now, so the next job is to give it a thorough clean. Okay, I'm getting towards the end of cleaning up the keys on the typewriter, and my product of choice for this is peak polish. It's good for many things. It's essentially a metal polish, but it works quite well on a lot of plastics. You can see there's some white deposits on these keys, which I think is slight decomposition of the plastic, but it's coming off alright with the peak polish. Like that. So the next thing to do is to put a new ribbon on the typewriter, because the old one's pretty knackered. So I'm going to unwind it from the existing spools and put the new one on. It's the kind that have a hooky spike that grips the ribbon. The replacement ribbons come on a plastic reel that doesn't fit my typewriter. This is fairly normal, and it's quite usual to have to rewind them onto your original reels. And besides, the original reels for my typewriter are nice brass ones, whereas the new ones are just cheap plastic. And hooked onto the new one. And yes, I'm now quite dirty. So this may take some time. Right, that's got to the end, so all I've got to do is unhook the hooky bit . Get the old ribbon off the old reel . And that's ready to install. So to install the ribbon, pop the reel over the post on this side, then the guide there, the ribbon has to just tuck between the two parts of the guide, and then in the centre guide you're looking to get the ribbon to pass underneath the centre two prongs and over the top of the outer prongs, and then you tuck it into the slots in the outer prongs. So it should look like that, and then round the guide post on the other side, again it tucks into the two clips, and finally onto the reel on this side, onto the post, sorry, on this side, and then just tidy up this bit in the middle that's gone a bit wrong. Be alright once there's some tension on it. That should now be more or less good. Yeah, that is the ribbon on. Excellent. I've stitched up the area on the bag where the zip had come off, but having looked at it, the thread on the entire bag has rotted. So I will have to stitch up the whole bag over time, but for now I'll probably stop having just done the bottom, because it's going to take quite a lot of time doing it by hand. This video's gone on quite a bit longer than I expected, so I'll leave the big reveal and demonstration to part 2. I'll put a link to that video in the description when it goes live in about a week. If you've enjoyed watching, feel free to like the video and subscribe to the channel. There'll be more vintage stuff and repairs coming soon. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in a future video.